Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Classroom Organization, Creating a Productive Teaching Environment in Pre-K. We just want to let you know that we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. We have a lot of people logging in right now, so we want to give everybody the time to be here when we begin. So we will begin in about 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, it seems that we have many attendees who have been able to log on, so we are going to begin our presentation. Once again, we are here in our session 2 of our pre-K overview sessions. We had last week that you attended the class above the rest, learning about positive interactions in pre-K. And this week we are focusing on classroom organization and creating that productive teaching environment in pre-K. Your presenters today will be myself, Stephanie Templin, as well as
Ida Broer.
Yep, and we're very excited to be here. So we hope that you find our presentation interesting and you can learn some tips and techniques that you can bring back to your classroom. All right, so first we're going to do some webinar guidance. I want to make sure that everyone understands this new technology. It's a little confusing if you've never worked on GoToWebinar before. So first we have our expand window area that you can see is right here. See the expand window area. So that will open up your big window pane, your control pane. So if you only see this black rectangle, hit that arrow and it will expand it. Also have mute right here. So your mute button should look like this. You should have a red button with picture of a microphone crossed out. Keep that red. There'll be times when we will allow you to unmute yourself, such as during our reflective conversations, as well as questions and comments at the end. So that's an option for us for when we want to speak to one another. And then we have the raise hand feature. You can see it right here. This is the raise hand feature. Now, if the arrow is green, that means your hand is down. If you click it and the arrow turns red, that means your hand is up, and we can call upon you during our reflective times and our conversation times to unmute you. And then we also have, oh, I forgot to show my screen. I'm sorry, here you go. So you can see right here our expand window, and our mute button is right there. And quickly, here's your go to hand raise feature. Sorry about that, everybody. And then we're going to participate in some polls today. So when you see a poll pop up, please select the answer that fits you best and hit submit as soon as possible. That will make sure that we can close the polls as fast as possible so you can see the results and we can discuss them. And then also I'm going to show you right now how to get your handouts and certificate and where your questions will be. So we're going to see over here now you have your panel. And over here, you look down your panel, you have some blue rectangle boxes, columns over here, some rows, and you'll see handouts right here. We have 4 handouts for you today. So if you click that white arrow to expand the window, you'll see 3 handouts that we thought focused on the majority of what we're talking about in our presentation today. And that would be a good tool for you to reflect on if and when you're in your classroom, or if you're in your classroom now. And the most important one that everybody's eager to know about is your certificate is right here. You can just download it and click that to open up another link. That is your certificate. Okay, so hopefully that helps you with navigating this platform. And we're gonna move on. Oh, here's question box. So you'll see your question box right too. There's handouts, there's questions. So just remember, open up that white arrow, click that white arrow, and then the panel will open. All right, so we had a reflective homework question that Wendy and Julio posed to you after their presentation about learning about positive interactions. They talked a lot about emotional support and how you can have a positive climate in your classroom. They talked about teacher sensitivity, showing your students comfort and being responsive to them. And that we've also talked about the regard for student perspective, having flexibility, not restricting movement, allowing mobility, and supporting independence. So you can raise your hand now if you'd like to share your aha moment, or you can write it in the questions box. So we'll do a few minutes to think about that. I wish I had like the Jeopardy tune so we could do that while everyone's thinking. All right, so let's see what we have. Look at my dashboard here. Sorry, we're just waiting to get some answers in here, and I have to scroll through all of your hand raises alphabetically, so it takes a little bit of time. So I see some hands are raised, so I'm going to try to unmute you so you can share with us. Thank you for being brave and speaking to all of us together. But I'm just scrolling down. We have over 200 participants, so it just does take a moment or two for us to capture those green, those hand raises. Okay, I have a hand raise right here from Sherry. So I'm going to unmute you, Sherry, and let me know if you have something to say about what your aha moment was last week. Okay, you should be unmuted, Sherry. Sherry, did you want to share something with us about your aha moment? It looks like she muted herself, so I don't think she meant to have her hand raised. So let's see if we have any more.
Oh, Stephanie, we have one from Lorraine, to let children take over.
Oh, great. Yes, let children take over, giving children opportunities and independence, and also helping them participate in what you're going to study and what interests them. So that's a great one. So thank you so much for sharing that one. Do we have any others in the question box, Tiffany?
Yep, Rosa says to always be positive. We have follow the interests of the group from Andrea.
Great. And that goes into that flexibility of a teacher being flexible and letting the children take those leadership roles. Awesome. I like
And
those
another
aha moments.
person, yep, and to piggyback on that, another person said, Deborah, to let the children focus on what interests them.
Yes, which is really important because that will keep your students really engaged. And actually that will tie into our presentation today because we do talk about making sure we have an environment that is engaging for the children so they don't lose any time, any learning time throughout the day. So that was a great point that does connect to what we're going to talk about today. So thank you. All right, so now we're going to move on. If we haven't gotten to your question, we will have time at the very end if you want to share more about your aha moments or if you want to share about questions and answers at the end. All right, so today we have our training objectives. We're going to learn about our classroom environment and the use of different teaching techniques, procedures, and ways to set up your classroom that will promote a safe and effective learning environment. We're going to discuss details and components that can enhance your children's independence by including certain elements in the classroom to promote that positive learning environment. And then we're going to introduce calming behavior techniques to implement into your classroom. And finally, at the end of our presentation, we're going to identify the importance of routines and predictable transitions and how they affect in creating that environment where students know what's expected of them so your class runs as a well-oiled machine. And that is our goal, is for every child and every teacher to know what is expected of them at that time, what they should be doing, and they're all working together. And then that creates that well-oiled machine that we are looking for. All right, so now it's going to be time for our first poll. And we're going to show you a picture. The question we're posing to you is, how does this store make you feel? And I'm going to give you a moment to look at that store. How do you feel about going to that store? Okay, I'm going to launch the poll now. Okay, here is the poll. The poll is open, so you can start voting. We have some anxious, uncomfortable. Oh, wow, we got a lot of people voting. Great job, everybody. All right, we're about a quarter through our voting. 50%. Oh, it looks like anxious is winning. Let's see. Okay, if you haven't voted, keep voting. We have about 50% of our votes in. Oh, interesting. Someone feels calm in that environment. All right, 52. There you go, guys. Thank you. Keep voting. Okay, I am going to close your poll. So if you haven't, final last votes, going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to close that poll and share the results to you. So you can see here that with the results, we can see that Anxious. This store makes most people feel very anxious, a little uncomfortable, unwelcomed. Personally, when I see this store, I would never come back because I don't feel welcomed. I don't feel that it's important to anybody in this store that I'm there or not. Ida, how does this store make you feel?
Yeah, I was in the anxious category. It's exactly what you said, Steph. They'll never see me again.
Okay. Now we're going to move on. So we're going to close up our results. We're going to hide the poll again. There we go. And then we are going to ask you. So our next question is, how does this classroom make you feel? So I'm going to show you a picture of a classroom. Give you a couple of seconds to take that in, look at the details. Think about how that makes you feel. All right, it's time to launch this poll, so I'm going to launch it. The poll is now open, so choose the answer that best fits you and hit submit. All right, we have 50% have voted. We'll give it a couple more seconds to get our final votes in. All right, going once, going twice. Hit submit one more time. We are going to close this poll and look at the results. Okay, and we can see our results of our poll right here. We can see that we had a few people felt chaotic in that room, but the majority really felt welcomed. I'd have to say I'd be in the welcomes category too. I think it's a very bright, inviting room to come into. I feel ready to start my day. So that is the one I would have chosen as well. So we're going to hide that poll. Thank you so much for participating in that poll. And we just really want to reflect that your environment communicates something to your children right when they walk in, the second they walk in, the first day of school. And it's up to you to determine what that environment is going to be and how the children are going to react to it. So let's go to the slide. All right, so I'm going to leave you next with Miss Ida, and she's going to start us off with environmental structuring.
Yes, thank you, Steph. So welcome, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. I see some of my teachers and administrators have joined the webinar. Thank you so much. And I miss you all. This is as they say, the new normal. Kind of want the old normal back, being with my teachers and the children, but we're going to make the best of it. And thank you for joining us today. So I'm going to start talking about environmental structuring. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is that it provides predictability. For example, one thing that we should be using is the children's names when we address them. Monica, Stephanie, Tiffany. We tend sometimes to use other names, but this is one of the things that they talked about last time, the mutual respect of using a child's name. And it also indicates, hey, you're talking to me. Hey, what do you want? I'm here. I'm ready for you. So that's one of the things that is very important of using the children's names. The other one is when you are structuring your classroom, depending on the space that you have. Sometimes you have a big classroom and sometimes you have a teeny weeny classroom. So you have to determine how to define your centers. Where am I going to do small groups? Where is my large group or meeting time or circle time going to be? How many tables am I going to have for lunch and things like that? So you need to really look at your space, really define where you're going to put things, and then you start with your classroom organization and classroom management and your center management time, where you're going to put your posters and things like that. So by doing this increases independence, because you want your children to know where things are and how to get what they need and things like that. We can't always do for them, because you want them to start learning where things go. So it increases independence, and sometimes they may not put it in the right place, but at least when they're trying, that's great. It also prevents problems before they occur. So you are always looking to see where you may have to tweak it and kind of change things around in your classroom, because some behaviors may be happening. And I'm going to talk more about behaviors and how to deter from having these behaviors that are not acceptable. It provides an organizational framework from classroom activities. As you see in the picture, you see that there is a library listening center time management poster, and we teach the children that how many are going to be in that exact center. So with everything is a process. Everything takes time. They're not going to learn how to do this right away. So that's why we're constantly modeling and showing them where the signs are, the materials, and when we have in the bottom are, small groups that the teacher is working with the children. So. Alrighty, so how do we teach them to take care of each center? This is one of the top, questions of all childcare centers and teachers, is like we're constantly picking up after the children sometimes. But like I said, in the beginning of the year, this is what I do in my classroom. And Stephanie and I have been in the trenches. We have been preschool teachers, elementary school teachers. We have been there, so it's not. So we understand the pain sometimes. So what I do in the beginning of my school year, I never opened all the centers at the same time, because some of my children have never been to a child care center, so it can be overwhelming of like, oh wow, look at all this stuff that they have. What am I going to touch first? So what I do is I would open 2 centers, and then another 2, and another 2, and another 2. And this process will take about sometimes 2 weeks to open up finally all my centers. So what I do, if I, hopefully you have a co-teacher or teacher assistant, she takes half of the children, I take half of the children. Today we're going to open up small toys or manipulatives, and she will be in the library area. Once again, I'm gonna tell you, not all of the materials are in there either. I'm going to put maybe 5 things in the small manipulatives, and the library area, she might just be introducing, some of the books and maybe some of the puppets. And I show them how to use these things and where to put them away and all of that. And that's why it takes me, I think this process is better than just opening everything and we expect the children to know how to play with all these things. And that's not necessarily true. So it takes about 2 weeks for this process that I would do. And then finally, and then throughout the year, I'm putting more and more materials in each of the centers. And then by the end of the year, it's going to look like that picture that Stephanie showed before, that I have all these different materials. And then, of course, I rotate. When I see a child is kind of like, and children are kind of bored with something already, I put something else in there. But once again, I introduce the material to them. Do not take for granted that children know what to do with some of these materials that we have in our classroom. As for cleanup, I try to make it as enjoyable as possible. And I'm a dancer in my own little mind. I think I'm a dancer, not necessarily sure if I am a dancer. And I would dance around and we help each other clean up. And as you see in the pictures, sometimes you'll have a little person that will patrol the library and see everything is in its place. You'll have that weather patrol person if you have a pet in your classroom as well. And you have, these are different from the helpers. These are our little patrollers to make sure that everything is in its place. And then they will also help you out that way. So just remember, everything takes time. So this is your classroom. These are some of your centers. Sometimes you don't have as many centers, like I said, depending on your classroom, but the majority, most of our classrooms do have a dramatic play or housekeeping, blocks, and music and movement, art, of course. and just depends on your space and what you can do. You can have portable centers that you can bring down, like computers. Usually everyone has laptops, not so much the desktop computers, and that could be something that could be brought out and then put away somewhere else because you don't really have space to incorporate a little computer area. So let's move things around and make it more comfortable for the children and for you. You look at it and you say, this is not working. And what also I do is I put my noisy centers together and then I loop my classroom around. So as you know, the noisy centers are usually housekeeping and blocks are the most noisy in your classroom. And then I loop them around to kind of semi-loud, semi-quiet, and of course your quiet area is your library, and that's usually a nice little corner area. Remember, your art is a messy area, so wherever your sink is, that's where I usually will put my art area, wherever my sink or bathroom area was, that they can do kind of a fast cleanup because it is a messy center. So, but you know, at the end, you'll have my number if you want me to do room arrangement. I'll come by. LOL. Alrighty, another thing that we have in our classrooms, and I know you all do, is your classroom helpers. And they take their job seriously. Once they have this, and they keep this job for an entire week. That's how I used to do it in my classroom. And this is what my classroom will look like, hopefully. So the thing about labeling is like, okay, we are busy teachers. If a label falls, put it back that same day because your labels will eventually sometimes start falling, and just maintain that classroom of like, oh, the label fell when the children are napping, put it back, because then another label is going to fall and another label is going to fall, and then you have 10 labels you're going to put back, and sometimes that never happens. And that's when your classroom starts looking a little chaotic. So yes, of course, sometimes your classroom is going to be chaotic, but remember, you have jobs for the children to do, and they're responsible because you want it to be that welcoming area that they come to every day. So thank you. All righty, we're going to talk about routines and rituals. And I am fanatical about conscious discipline. I love conscious discipline. I incorporate it in my classroom. And with everything, it's a process. Once again, I'm going to say that like 50,000 times. It is a process. It is not going to work the first day, the second day, the first week, the second week. When I started introducing conscious discipline and the difference between routines and rituals, it took me about a month for the children to really understand what I was talking about and the different techniques that I was using. So what is the difference? Routines are essential for young children because it will tell them what to do at what time. Not really the time, because their time is that internal clock that they kind of figure out when things are ending, and they have that visual schedule and routines and that daily schedule, and they can see, okay, Miss Ida's ready to go and read us a book. Miss Ida's we're going to be ready to go outside. And then they learn to predict what happens next. The feeling of empowerment to tackle the next task. Oh, we're going to something else. And that makes your day flow wonderfully. If you don't have a routine or a schedule or even your lesson plan ready, it is the longest day of your life. Trust me, I have done it. I'm like, oh, you know, I'm going to wing it today. And by the time I got home, I'm not talking to anybody. I am like exhausted, ready for a nap, like forever a nap. You can tell me about it. So routines add predictability and consistency to your classroom. So be consistent always with what's coming next. A ritual is not a routine. It has like routines have predictability of like an ending goal. Rituals connections are their goals, and rituals are sacred places designated for togetherness and unity. So that's the big difference. So rituals, you're like, okay, what is this word that Miss Ida is just like throwing out there? But if you have done conscious discipline, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I'm so excited. I get all excited. If you can see my face, it would be wonderful, but not today. All righty, so let's keep going. So rituals are an expression of unity. And then when does this happen? Usually during circle time or meeting time. That is when you have that unity. You sit down with the children, and it's not always, it's great that you're doing the ABCs and the numbers and the days of the week and the weather, but just kind of let's talk about our feelings. Let's talk about how we feel today. It's okay for a child to be upset. It's okay for, they can be happy all the time. Just because they're children doesn't mean, you should be happy all the time. They're little human beings that have feelings, and we need to address these feelings. So getting back to that. So that's where you get that togetherness and connection. Even when you're doing one-to-one with that child, that's another kind of ritual, especially when you know that child wants you to play with them and kind of wants you to read to them on one-to-one. That could be a ritual that may happen all the time, that child says, this is my 5 minutes with Miss Ida. She's going to read to me in library, and it becomes a ritual for them. So another ritual that we all do is that holiday rituals. Thanksgiving is a big one. And hopefully when this is all over, we're able to be going to Thanksgiving dinners with our families and with our friends in the classroom as well. Because when we're celebrating Thanksgiving, it is a time that we are grateful for what we have and who we're with and things like that. For the children is that birthday. Every time that birthday runs around or rolls around, it is usually 1 week before that child's birthday, and that child is like, Miss Ida, it's my birthday, Miss Ida, my birthday, my birthday. And you're like, oh yes, it is. You're going to be a birthday next week on Tuesday, and you make a big deal out of it because it is a big deal. That's the day that they came into this beautiful world, and we need to celebrate and make a big deal. In your culture and your traditions, you have rituals. Like for me, there's times during the holidays that I have to have certain foods, certain music, certain dances are done during these special times. And for you, remember that classroom is a family. That is a family of your children. And I can remember at the end of the year when my children had to move on to the next grade or next level, I would literally be crying in my classroom because one, they're growing up and it is a family for them. I look forward to seeing them every day. So that togetherness and joy that you have with your children, even the one that maybe drives you a little crazy, but if that person is not there, it doesn't make your classroom complete. So we need every aspect of all children. And it's not that he or she is making you crazy. It's just, it is. Okay. All right, so these are the top 10. And once again, you can get all this information from the Conscious Discipline. And a lot of these things are free that you can download and print and use it. Like I said before, you need to be consistent, and it takes a while for it to work. It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, I did this for a week and I don't know what Miss Ida is talking about. It's not working. Like I said, it took me about a month, and every day I would do it and things like that. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the greeting and goodbye ritual. So what I would do, I would greet the children every day at the door, and I would have an apron on, and you'll see the apron on the next slide, of how they want to be greeted. A handshake, a smile, a hug, a thumbs up, whatever they picked, I would greet them in the mornings, and then as they would leave, I would also let them pick, and then I would say goodbye to them. And that really sets the tone in your classroom, how you be greeted, instead of just like, good morning, Johnny, good morning, Susie, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is a very special way, and that they get to pick. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the kindness ritual. So every time I see an act of kindness, I would put a little heart on a tree and paste it to the tree. And at the end of the day, I will count how many acts of kindness were conducted in my classroom. And it's small little acts of kindness of like, Sarah tied Johnny's shoes. It's an act of kindness. I saw it, and she noticed that his shoes are untied. She tied them for him. He says thank you. That was an act of kindness. And I would just put it up. And then sometimes, I would put their names on it and what happened. And then I would let them take that home with them at the end of the day if they wanted to. The last one I'm going to talk about is the wishing well ritual. And this one is kind of like what you see in the plate is a heart. And then I have pictures of the children of my classroom. And when a child is not there that day, I would wish them well. So sometimes I would know that they're going to be absent because they might have told me ahead of time that there might be a planned vacation, or maybe they have a doctor's appointment or things like that, or just that they're not feeling well and they're home that day. So if I notice that Stephanie is not here today, I have a little picture of Stephanie. I put it in the middle of the heart, and then I will sing. Okay, I don't want any votes like American Idol. So I'm going to try my best to do the We Wish You Well song. And some of you probably are familiar with it. So here goes. We wish you well, all through the day today. We wish you well. And then I put Stephanie's picture in the heart, and hopefully Stephanie will come back tomorrow for Ida's great classroom. And that is the top three that I'm going to talk about. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the social and emotional of the well-being in the calming corner or the safe place. I do not have a timeout. I don't believe in timeout. I believe in the calming corner and safe place. Again, so you'll see in the apron that I was talking about, the high five, the warming, the heart, the smile, the wiggly hands. So whatever you think it's good, because some children like to be touched, and some children are not touchy. So sometimes you can have like a thumbs up or a smiley face. So things like that. So I just wanted to point that out to you. So using visuals, and you can see from the different pictures of the one in the middle is the conscious discipline one, which is the balloon, the pretzel, and the drain. And you can go to conscious discipline and you can print the icons, and it tells you exactly how to demonstrate these different things. The pinwheel also, that you blow on the pinwheel to calm children down, they're all there. And you can also kind of make this cube as well. So those visuals in your classroom is a great thing. And then walking the child through the process. They're not gonna know what the balloon is if you've never, they'll think it's a balloon. And you say, this is what we're gonna go do today when we feel anxious, or we need to kind of, get ourselves calm in a way. And another powerful thing is silence. The lower your voice, the better it is. So sometimes we, and we're human, and start like, no, you know, blah, 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 no, instead of bringing your voice down a bit and saying, and because they can't hear you. So they're like, okay, I don't know what Miss Ida's talking, let me get closer, and they will stop what they're doing because they're really curious on like, what is she saying, because I can't hear her. But silence is a powerful thing in your classroom. So to everywhere else versus at the moment, sometimes what I would do when my classroom would get out of hand or become chaotic, I would freeze. Okay, everyone freeze. I don't really care about cleaning up. I bring everyone back to a quiet area, or the meeting area, or the circle time, and we're going to talk about what's going on. And and they're like, but we need to clean up. It's nope, we're not gonna clean up. Everyone come back. We're going to have a meeting time or a moment. I'm like, try to acknowledge what is happening and what we need to do to make it better. You have a lot of sensory exploration items, so you'll see in the brain breaks, you'll have different ones there, and once again, things from the web. And of course, I have my emotional chart in my classroom, but I would have the children's faces. So once again, in the beginning of the year, I was like, okay, everyone show me mad, and I would take a picture. Everyone show me sad, and my emotional chart is them, that they could look and say, oh yeah, I remember when Miss Ida was talking about feeling, that's what my face looks like, and they can see themselves. And also I would have mirrors also so they can see what they look like. And then they'll say, oh, I don't want to look like that, Ida. I want to change. And I was like, and we'll talk about it. There's a lot of talking, and a lot of you be like saying, who has time for that? It normally, if you start, every day talking about it. And the beautiful thing is, like, when you see a child will say, oh, you know what, I need to be able to now. And they do it on themselves, and you know that they have learned the technique of calming themselves down. Okay. That's it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is zoning. Like that sound effect? Thank you very much. Okay, so you're probably doing it, but I'm decided probably using a fancy word. So zoning equals safety, and it decreases behavior. Yes, we need to be everywhere all the time. We are. That's why when people tell me, oh, I'm going to be a teacher, it's going to be so easy just being with the children. And they will also think preschool teachers were just playing all day long. It may seem that way to some people, but we are doing a lot. Being a teacher is one of the hardest professions. And that's what I'm going to say about that one. So no one can tell me differently. Next to motherhood, it's probably the hardest profession there is being a teacher. So we need to know where we're going to be at in our classroom. So hopefully you do have another teacher in your classroom, and you're going to divide and conquer. You're going to be like, when they're in centers, you're going to be on here. I'm going to be over here. You're walking around, and that's why I say it's the hardest profession, because by the time you get home, you're tired because you have been working real hard. So focus on scanning your room. Where do I need to be? I know maybe Johnny has difficulty with Susie. I need to know where both of them are in order to kind of, sometimes you just need to keep children apart because they just don't get along. You don't. That's what it is. That's life. So, and kind of like going around, especially in the playground, you are walking and scoping and zoning, not zanning, but sometimes you could be zanning when you're zoning, and just know where all the gates are, the doors, where in your classroom, some classrooms have, and I've been to some classrooms, they have a big pole in the middle of their classroom, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's there because it's a structural thing and they can't get rid of it. So that's a blind spot. So you need to know, okay, I need to know that there's nothing I can do about this pole. So I need to, structure myself in a certain way that I will be able to see the children and kind of deter, when a child's about to blow up. And if you're scanning and zoning your classroom, you can prevent that behavior from happening and exploding to a level that you don't want it. But like I said in the beginning, it's okay for them to be upset or angry or mad at each other because of a toy or things like that, but you don't want it to escalate to the point of them hitting or the child throwing themselves on the floor in a tantrum, things like that. So of course, with your classroom expectations, everything, sometimes you may have these task organizers or visuals, and you may have this for one child, and this is why your daily schedule is so important, but you may have something like this hanging on your lanyard, and you may have it for individual children to give them extra help of like when you come in, you're going to unpack, and always we put the words with the pictures, but not necessarily that they're reading the words, but they see the picture and they understand, okay, when I come into the classroom, I will put my things away or unpack my things into my cubby or into my special area. And then everything in your classroom is labeled, and the shelves are labeled, the children's cubbies are labeled. It's like label overload, but the reason is because of course children don't know how to read, and so we need to help them out, and that is a self-help kind of technique in order to know where everything belongs in your classroom. If your classroom is chaotic, and as teachers, because I know I could be a little hoarder, if I'm not using it, then I have to let it go. You have to be like Elsa. Let it go. Let it go, guys. Give it to someone else, or donate it, or just if you say, you know what, let me take this home. I'm not really going to use this, and just let it go, literally. Because when your classroom becomes cluttery with bins and things that you don't even know what's in it, then it's not that welcoming classroom that we saw in the beginning. Anticipating special events is those, special events you have in your classroom. You may have a special reader, a special visitor, the police department or the firemen are coming today. And of course, another anticipated special event is the child's birthday. We make a big deal. We have it on our calendar. We may have something special saying, and they know something's happening tomorrow. And then you say, yes, we're having a guest visitor and things like that. Okay. And the other classroom expectations and behavior is be consistent. If you tell the child that you're going to be in the library area, be in the library area when you tell that child. The thing is, when you say I'll be there in 2 minutes, they have no like, what is 2 minutes? 2 minutes feels like 2 hours for me. What is 2 minutes, Besaida? And that's why I use timers. I use timers for everything in my classroom. And what I would tell during the holidays, when the parents would tell me I don't need another cream for my hand, that's nice, but I don't need, how many creams do I need? I would tell them I want a timer. They would look at me crazy, and I was like, because I can have 5 different timers, because eventually they tend to break depending on the timer you get. So I would ask for timers, and I would use them throughout the classroom. And this is a good way also to give that child that maybe need extra time during centers, that they get upset because you're cutting it, or you're saying it's time to clean up, giving them a heads up. Okay, when the timer goes off, that means we're going to start cleaning up. So you have those extra 2 minutes or 3 minutes that you're going to give them to in order for the behavior not to, because when they're engaged and they're so into it, and you're like, clean up, they're like, are you kidding me? In their minds, they're saying, are you kidding me? Besaida, you don't understand, I need to finish. Or you can tell them, look, let's set it aside, and when you wake up from nap, you can go back to it later and do it. Let them do it. Because if you say, oh no, we're not going to do that, and they're going to say, you promise, you're not consistent, you are not telling me the truth. So, and when trust issues happen and they don't trust you, then the behaviors are going to escalate, because They won't believe you. Have students have jobs, and that increases the leadership and the independence. The grandma rule is first you're going to do this, and once you accomplish it, and then this will happen next. And Stephanie's going to talk about that in a little bit later in more detail. And just remember to be consistent. Be flexible. If they want to read the dinosaur book today and you are going to read another, is it so bad if you read the dinosaur book? No, not really, because you're going to go back to the other book eventually anyway. A lot of teachers use treasure box for another kind of incentives to keep the behaviors in tune. So that's another thing that I had in my classroom as well. But the main thing I would use is those timers. And then we have some special activities because I want the classroom to be a whole in the behavior. So, and they will be accountable and they will help each other and say, you know what? Maybe you need to do the balloon, or, you know, and then we'll point out the behaviors that are not acceptable among themselves because we are a classroom family. All righty. And here comes Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. That was great. So we're going to continue on with behavior and feedback and how they go hand in hand. It's very important because it provides children with specific positive feedback, will actually help them learn what is appropriate and what it looks like. Let's focus on this little passage that we have up here. It says, while teachers often comment on children's learning or academic behavior, they rarely give feedback about appropriate social behavior. So think about that for a moment. Reflect on yourself. Are you recognizing only academic achievement, or are you recognizing social achievement, or are you recognizing a little bit of both? There's a little strategy I would use in my class. I had, similar to Ida's strategy, I had these little catch you certificates when I would see a child helping another child or sharing with materials if they didn't have any materials left, things like that that you expect 4- and 5-year-olds to be doing in a positive social emotional way. I would put their name on the certificate, I would sign it. It was a little check mark certificate because I know we don't have a lot of time. And there was a little other portion too if it was a very specific caught you card. And what I did was it really provided a lot of confidence to the children. They got really excited. They felt recognized. And then they would bring it home to their parents, and then their parents would get really excited and bring back that conversation the next day. So it was a really great opportunity to add family engagement along with recognizing behavior and feedback. I have a little quote for us here. It says, when you focus on the good gets better, which is very true, but we're gonna go a little further. We're gonna say, when you focus on the good of your classroom, the good of your classroom gets better. So remember, keep focusing on the good. It will really help. Don't forget to create opportunities for formal recognition of this positive behavior. And, you know, also just verbally commenting appropriate behavior as it occurs is an essential tool, like I said. So that's how behavior and feedback go hand in hand. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about classroom rules, classroom agreements, classroom contracts, whatever you call it in your room. And we're going to talk about how it also supports children. Having strong, clear rules supports children in their learning and lessons waiting time. As you can see here in this chart, it's sort of, you can see when the distractions and the disruptions decrease. That means when we have our routines in place, when we have interesting transitions and interesting materials and centers that have been well thought of, you can see it's like a scale. When that goes down, your learning increases and the children are engaged in learning activities. So then they have time to start thinking higher order. You can have time to start posing higher order thinking questions to them, for them to reason, and for them to do analysis. So that's really important. So we really got to make sure that our classroom rules are consistent and that we are putting them in a place where the children can be accessible to them as well. And here are some tips that we have about classroom rules right here. And our first tip is you're going to notice that your rules need to be short and simple, and they got to be easy to monitor. And then the younger your children, the fewer the rules. So if you're a young threes teacher, your rules might look a little bit different than a 4-year-old teacher. So you want to make sure it's developmentally appropriate for the age group that you're working with. And then we're going to communicate them frequently, especially at the beginning of the year. Anytime a child joins the classroom after a long break from spring break or winter break, you're going to communicate them frequently. Honestly, I believe you should communicate your rules every day and get your children involved. There's a lot of different ways and creative ways to get your children involved in reciting the rules at your morning circle, at your assembly time, and how you could do it. You can make a physical game. If it's no hands, keep your hands to yourself. All the kids can put their hands on their head and things like that. So you get them physically involved. Feet to yourself, they could put their feet out and then bring them back in. So you're getting them involved in the learning process physically and orally. And then we want to praise the children, especially where they are. We really want to praise them. And even when they're learning new routines and skills, because it's a process. Like Ida was saying, this is going to be a process and this is going to take a long time. You might not see the impact of all these things that we're encouraging you to implement until January. But boy, once January hits, your classroom is going to be that well-oiled machine that you always dreamed it could be. So we want to praise children when they're learning these new routines and skills, such as if little Monroe was able to wash her hands and get her lunchbox, but she's standing in the middle of the room, it's important for the teacher to recognize the first 2 steps that she got right in that routine, and then scaffold, give her some hints, and guide her to the table to finish the routine. And we want to enforce and focus on the positive behavior. So keep reinforcing that positive behavior. And you also want to state your rules in the positive as well. And this one is an important one that I don't see talked about too much in trainings, but I have a little story that goes with it. So when I was a teacher of a 3-year-old, 4-year-old class, we had, typical kids. And then we realized around October, November, that they all started to verbally be really negative toward each other. Like, you can't do this and don't touch that, that's mine. And we didn't understand where it was really coming from, because at the beginning of the year, this type of language wasn't really observed. So we took a step back, we had our class observed, and then we realized the children were modeling after us. They were listening to us, and we just got caught up in a negative spiral, and we were saying a lot of negative instructions instead of putting them in the positive. So we had to really go back, reflect, and we decided to take the word no out completely, which was very hard. If you can't say one word, you always want to say that one word, and restate everything in the positive. And after about 2 months, you could really see the difference in the children because they were modeling what we are doing. So you, at any time of the day, you want to remain calm and redirect yourself, because you're modeling for the children how to go through these classroom rules, and you're showing how to react to stressful situations. So, and you're keeping your classroom running smoothly that way. So if you are calm and react calmly to challenging situations, your classroom is going to stay calm. Okay. And then a little bit more on our rules. We really want to encourage the children to help us create the rules so the students have buy-in and ownership. So it means more to them. The more they're involved, the more meaning it has, the more that they will participate. It's just like in your classroom and saying, these are my crayons that we need to clean up. You say, these are your crayons to the class. And those children, if it's their crayons, they're going to take much better care of those crayons, because it's more important if it's theirs versus if it's yours, because they're egocentric at this age. So I'm going to show you a picture right here. We have No David. If you're not familiar with this character, No David is a little boy who goes on different adventures and pretty much does the opposite of what is expected of him. There's a book called No David Goes to School, which is it's a really fun interactive book. The children get to participate by keep telling David no. And it was really interesting because at the end of the book, you could tell intrinsically the children knew what was expected of them at school. So the teacher here extended this project and said, what makes a good student? And the children brainstormed all these different ideas using kind words, picking up your things, following directions, helping others. So the third step this teacher could do is take this chart and with the children kind of condense some of these ideas and develop about 5 ideas that can be written down on a chart. And what I like to do, I like to make it a little contract or agreement. So I keep a space at the very bottom of my rule chart in my classroom, and then I would have the children sign. It's early in the year, so however they can sign is appropriate. You don't have to trace their names or anything. If it's an X, it's an X. If it's their name in perfectly shaped letters, it's their name in perfectly shaped letters. But the importance of them signing the contract means there's a commitment. So if you see a child going against the commitment, not following an established rule, you can bring them back to the rule chart and remind them about when we created these rules together and remind them that they signed and agreed to follow the rules and problem solve and what that child can do next to solve his problem and start being a model student again by listening to the classroom agreements. Okay, it's our final poll. We're going to talk about lost time in the classroom. So I want you to ponder this right here and ask yourself, how much time is wasted during your day? Then you can think about what are some interruptions that occur in your classroom. You can think about how long that interruption will last. And then when do your students spend a lot of time waiting? Do you have administration coming in often and it takes away from their learning time? Do you have interruptions in the classroom where a parent comes in 10 minutes late every day and it takes away the learning time of the children because you already started your day? So think about this, and we're going to launch a poll right now. This, how much time is lost during your instruction? So the poll is open. And you should see it right here. So how much time is lost during your instructional time on an average day? We have none, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and too many to quantify. Hopefully we don't get too many of those results. But we might, because 3 hours for VPK, if you're a VPK teacher, is not a lot of time. 8 to 12, 9 to 12, it's not a lot of time. So it is really challenging to find time in your classroom. Okay, we only have about 33% who have voted, so we're going to keep asking everybody to keep voting, add their results, calculate that time. Okay, we're about halfway through our poll. Okay, finish your final answers. We're going to be closing the poll in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, final answers, and 1, close the poll. And let's look at the results. All right, so let's look at these results together. It's a little small on my screen, so let me just open that up a little bit. Okay, so it does look like none, 6%, and 5 minutes, about 16%, 10 minutes, 23. We have 15 minutes at 31%, and too many interruptions to even think about is 24%. So the majority of the group is about 15%, 15 minutes are lost during your instructional time and during your day. Okay, thank you for participating in that poll. So I just wanted us to think about this. Losing 15 minutes a day doesn't seem like too much. I remember when I used to do in live trainings, I would give myself a buffer of 10 to 15 minutes just to make sure that we got our surveys out. We did a pre and post test. We gave that 5 extra minutes for the teachers who are getting off the clock at 6 and need to get to the training at 6:30. So it doesn't seem like a lot of time isolated. But then when we start to add this time up, it really starts to impact the children and their learning. So 15 minutes on Monday, 15 minutes on Tuesday, that's 30 minutes. And then go to Thursday, now you're at 1 hour. And then by the end of the week, you're at 1 hour and 15 minutes. Now imagine 1 hour and 15 minutes multiplied by 4 weeks, multiplied by the number of months in your program year. That is a significant amount of time these children are losing in their VPK classroom if you're a VPK teacher, because it's only 3 hours long. So thank you so much for participating in our poll right here. We're going to hide that. And we're going to go back to our presentation. Okay. So now it is movie time. I always find movies to be very, or like video clips to be very, very successful in my trainings. I think it's great to see real teachers and real students implementing different techniques that we are talking about. So we are going to look at a small module that will talk about different schedules and routines and how they affect the classroom. We're going to open up a video now. It's called Schedules and Routines. And I'm going to hit play. I'm just going to pause it right there. I love how that little girl is very clear and understanding of what she does when she arrives to that room. She found her name effortlessly. You could tell that she had a positive demeanor. She was like a little hop, skippy walk over to her name, and then she was bringing it right over to where it needs to go. And notice how that teacher was in proximity just to make sure that she's still there to support, scaffold, and give hints in case the child is having a hard time, whether it is finding their name or remembering what to do with the card. So I just like to point that out, that when you really put these routines into place, how well the students can really react. So I just wanted to pause right here to talk about that foundation. That foundation is what we're talking about today, about a well-structured and well-organized classroom environment and the interactions that go hand in hand with the class tool and what you do every day with the children. So it's really important aspect to build up to that highly individualized teaching and learning. We need that foundation first. So if we don't get that foundation solid, it's going to be very difficult to add on child assessment, to add on that curriculum, and then get to that higher order thinking. So you really want to take a lot of time to think about your environment, your routines, and your I'm going to stop it right here because I really want you to pay attention to the interesting materials that this teacher has accessible to the children. You can see that there's pipe cleaners, which I hear have a new name, Chanel. I don't remember the whole name, but I'm a little old, so I'll call them pipe cleaners for today. But you can see there's tape in the background, there's Play-Doh, there's cookie cutters, it seems to be a very open process, so the children are free to create what they want, and that adds rich conversations when they start talking about their creations. So it's very important to have your centers And to make sure that there's always something engaging and interesting, you got to switch it up a little bit. You can't have the same center with the same materials for the entire school year, or your behavior will start to decrease because they become uninterested and they don't have anything else to occupy themselves. So I love how you can tell that this teacher has been going over the rules since day one, and it seems that he does it frequently because the children can help participate in answering and recalling what will happen next. And what I really want to draw your attention to is his calendar. It's February. He's going over the schedule and the rules every day. So you got to keep going over the schedule every day, because that's how the children learn to internalize that, and that helps them keep their clock. And they're little 4-year-olds who have only been on the planet for 48 hours, 48 months. So they might not be able to remember every single event. So going over the schedule really does provide them a sense of security. All right, so here you can see the teacher embedding some learning and information. She's working on physical standards for these children. She gave choice to Sammy to decide how they're going to quickly go from one spot of the classroom to their planning tables in an efficient manner. So you can embed learning through movement as well as verbal. And I just love seeing this lunch routine. It's really clear that all the children have the independence to and know what is expected of them to go over and begin lunchtime. Every child was able to walk up, grab their pack, and go over to the table. So that was a really nice lunch transition that was highlighted in this video. I want to let you know where we got this video clip. It's a really great website. So if you have a pen or paper next to you, you can write it down. It's called Head Start Early Childhood Learning and Knowledge Center, ECLKC, and then also the National Center for Quality Teaching and Learning. So those are two really great resources for your own personal professional development. And that's where we found this video resource. All right, thank you for watching that movie and being so attentive. We're gonna go back into our PowerPoint slide. Okay, so moving forward, we're gonna talk about predictability and how important predictability is. So with your schedule and knowing what comes next is really gonna minimize those wait times for those children so they're more engaged with learning than they are waiting. You're gonna have visual schedules in your room, which give independence. So for just a quick minute, take your hand and cover up the pictures. All those children are seeing in your classroom, if you don't have pictures, are random numbers and letters. They're really not at the age, maybe some VPK kids at the end of the year can recognize the word home, but they're not at the age that they'll be able to understand this schedule. But they can understand it if you give them visual support. So move your hand away from the pictures and see now how much more effective that this schedule is going to be for that classroom. So it really will give the children the independence. Now, classroom schedules are important, but we don't want to forget to give a little flexibility sometimes and look for pacing and cues from your group. Sometimes your assembly circle time morning meeting is not going so well and you've lost pretty much the attention of the children. Either you need to change what you do or you need to change up the activity or routine. If we go to our next slide, we can see this is a description of example of a visual schedule. I love taking pictures of my classrooms. When I was a teacher, I would take pictures of the children doing all the different activities of our day. So they had more ownership and they cared more about these visuals that were on the wall because they were actually a part of them. And then this is grandma's rule that Ida mentioned first. This is just a piece of paper divided into some columns and rows. First then, so you can see here, there's a great visual picture of this child who needs to remember that first he needs to eat his lunch and then he gets to have his screen time or whatever time. So this one might be an example from home, but this is really great for your children who are learning to speak English or those children that just have 1 or 2 transition times during the day that is really difficult for them. So you can take pictures and laminate them and get some Velcro and make this little chart, which could be very useful in your classroom. And then I just have this quote here, which says, success is the small sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out. So the success of your classroom is in the sum of your small efforts, repeated day in and day out. And I know Ida spoke about it, I spoke about it, but these are really important points that you have to do it day in and day out to show growth. If you're a trivia nerd like me, you know that it takes 28 days to form a new habit or routine. And when that new habit or routine is formed, it just covers over the old habit or routine. So it's always under the surface. So that's why you got to keep doing your routines, repeating them day in and day out. You know, during this new reality, I've been keeping up with my routines, even though no one sees me, I still do my hair and do my makeup because I know these routines keep me on a schedule and keep some normalcy in my day. Okay, organization is key. We all know that in this field, there's not a lot of planning time built into the day, and we have to find ways to prepare materials and activities. One idea is to have the children join in on the preparation and bring down the waiting times. So you want to be organized. So here we have a teacher who created a bin for each month of the year to organize thematic curriculum material that they needed. It does seem like it takes a lot of work. I'm not saying that this is going to happen overnight, but future you will love you next school year if all your materials are right where they're placed. And it also reduces the students' waiting time because they don't have to wait for you to find the exact right visual. It's already there. It's already ready to go. And then I have a picture here, which is a similar concept divided for the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday bin. You can create these bins and add any of those materials and visuals that you'll use each day, or any center enhancements that you might want to put on. So that reduces any waiting time for the children, because the teachers come in Monday morning and you're all ready to go. You have all the materials that you need for the day. And you can get the kids to help you prepare the materials. Don't forget to divide and conquer. There's way more of them than there are of you. And then finally, we want to be able to prepare in advance sometimes if there is a group lesson happening, and if you're fortunate to have an assistant, a teacher, they can go ahead and pre-set something or an activity that the children will be going to, so there's a seamless transition. So they go from large group time right into whatever activity, and it's already preset for them, so they're able to start right away. Okay, classroom routines. You'll never change your classroom until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. And the best routines have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But like we were talking about earlier in the presentation with Ida mentioning how she had to teach her students about the centers, we have to also teach our children about procedures and routines. So we have to clearly explain the routine, explain the procedure, model it for them, and demonstrate. Then you also want to rehearse, just like she was rehearsing those two different centers and switching. The rehearsal is really important under your supervision, so that you know what children understand how to use the materials in the appropriate ways, and what children still need a little bit more scaffolding and support. And then finally, you're going to keep reinforcing these procedures and routines. You're going to rehearse them, you're going to practice them, and sometimes you might have to reteach them until it becomes a habit or routine. And remember, it's going to take at least those first 28 days to establish it, and it's going to take more time to keep it going. I love these procedure cards I found on Pinterest. They're really helpful for brand new teachers who are, just setting up the classroom and setting up the routines, or they're also very helpful for veteran teachers who, for some reason or another, a routine or transition just isn't going the way it used to go. So this is a lineup procedure for transition. You can see clearly the children have to listen for the song. They walk to pre-placed spots, and they stay in line and listen to the teacher. Now, for this to be effective and for this to help the children not lose any learning time, that teacher needs to be ready with what he or she is going to say, and however he or she wants to continue the transition to the next activity. Okay, so transitions. So transitions are a little bit different from routines, and transitions really refer to a change. And there are different types of transitions that occur throughout your classroom day between activities. So from morning circle to your center or free choice time, between multiple different settings. Say you have a classroom, but you also have a cafeteria where the children eat. So there's a big transition there. And then also between programs. You want to really think about your transitions between programs. After VPK, a lot of those students turn into our after-school children. So those after-school children should have just as much as a schedule and a flow to their day that they did at the beginning of the morning, with all the same visuals and all the same techniques. And then just a reflective question for you is, Why is it important to plan transitions? Really, the answer is to decrease waiting time. All right, so tips on transitions. So we want to make sure that we tell the children before the transition happens. Give them a warning, give them a 5-minute warning. Yes, they don't tell time. So you can get a timer, or you can tell them, you can see this clock right here. You can tell them with the big hand is on the big line, the big hand is on the 12, and when the big hand is on the 1, then we're going to transition. So that kind of helps them give a visual reminder or an auditory reminder with the timer that before that transition occurs. And you want to give the children time, because sometimes children get very deeply involved in their activities and they're very engaged in whatever you presented to them. And we want to make sure we're flexible with them. So if it is time to change and you're not able, you can maybe perhaps give them 2 more minutes with a timer to finish up. If they're not able to finish then, maybe there's a time in the afternoon or the next day, but make sure that you do give the children the time to complete what they've been working on. And you want to plan something for those early finishers. You know, you always have those children who are participating in activities and they finish super, super early. So now they have some free choice time. So what would be great is to create a chart with a few different areas where they could choose to go. They could choose to go to the library. They could choose to go to puzzles. They can choose to go to manipulatives. Wherever you feel is the best way for them to pass the time while they're waiting for their other children to finish up an activity. You want to keep them engaged and involved in learning as well. And then we're going to engage and embed learning into these transition activities to make them more successful and to get the whole group working together as a team. Okay, so I mentioned embedded learning. And embedded learning mostly simply describes learning while doing. So we just don't want to line up in silence because there's no learning happening there. We want to be creative on how we line up and what we do. And how can we do that? So we can do that with finger plays. Finger plays are great not only for your fine motor skills, but for literacy development. So don't forget about your finger plays. I don't see them too much in the classroom anymore, but they're also still great for transitions and everything. And it really, the children really do enjoy them. They start to remember them. And there's so many finger plays. You could do it if there's a theme for your week or month, or you know your kids best. If they all love dinosaurs, I'm sure you can find a finger play about dinosaurs. Additional things we can add to our transitions are rhyming and song. We could sing a song or recite a rhyme while we're transitioning to one thing to another. It also helps foster our early literacy skills such as rhyming, and also expresses their creativity. So rhyming and song is another great way to engage a transition. And then you can play if you, line up, and for waiting times. So if you means if you're wearing a red shirt, go line up. If you're wearing blue pants, go line up. If you're wearing white sneakers, go line up. And see, it can be nice and fast so the children aren't waiting long and they have to process and they have to think, are they the child who has white sneakers or are they not? So they're still learning during this activity. And then you can also play it while they're waiting for maybe a group bathroom break or a transition from one program to another. You can say, if you have a sibling, raise your hand. If you have a brother, put your hands on your head. If you have a sister, put your hands on your nose. If you have no siblings, no brothers and sisters, put your hands to your side so they can follow along with you and keep answering those questions. And then we also have guessing games. So guessing games are fun. You can guess, you can have them about anything. I'm guessing about a letter and it's round and it has a stick. It could be B, it could be D. We're not sure. It's a guessing game. But then the children will call out some different letters and then you will guide them to the correct answer of what you were thinking about. Okay, so we covered a lot of information on class right now. So we really want to, we covered a lot of information. So now we want to see how does all this information connect to class? How is what we talked about for these last hour and a half, how is it helping with your class scores? So we want to remember that the class tool measures the interactions between the teachers and the students. Last week you spoke about emotional support. This week we really focus on classroom organization. behavior management, productivity, and instructional learning formats. And here is the formal definitions of these things. Let's see if I can read them for you. Behavior management or behavior guidance encompasses teachers' ability to use effective methods to prevent and redirect misbehavior by presenting clear expectations and minimizing time spent on behavioral issues. So we gave you a lot of strategies and techniques about behavior management, behavior guidance, creating behavior agreements. And then we have productivity. Productivity considers how well the teachers manage instructional time and routines so that students have the maximum number of opportunities to learn. So we want the maximum opportunities for the children to learn. So when you are in your class today, whether or not you're getting observed, you want to make sure that the children are always learning, always involved, and always busy. And then instructional learning formats and facilitation of learning development means to the degree of which teachers maximize students' engagement and ability to learn by providing interesting activities, instruction centers, and materials. And we spent a lot of time at the beginning talking about how important these interesting materials, activities, and centers are, and how they go into establishing your positive environment and how they support your productivity and your behavior management. Okay, so we have behavior management. What is that? Again, clear expectations, being proactive, redirecting misbehavior, and as an observer, we would look at your students' behavior. Productivity is maximizing learning times and having a quick and efficient transitions and routines with embedded learning and being prepared. And instructional learning formats, effective facilitation, a variety of modalities and materials. We call that video we watch, where there are so many interesting materials on that table. So that really holds the student interest, and also making sure that you're very clear on the learning objectives of those centers and different activities that you present to your students. All right, so now we're at our homework question that we're going to pose to you. So based on what you learned in this training, think about ways you can maximize wait times between activities. Say it again, because you guys did such a great job responding to last week's reflective question. I'm going to read it again. Maybe if you have any ideas, you could write them on a note right now. Based on what you learned in this training, think about ways to minimize wait times between activities. Okay, so now it's time for questions and answers. You can raise your hand to be unmuted if you have a question that you'd like to pose to the entire group, or you can type a question in the question box. While you guys get busy with that and start posing any questions that you need answered, I'm going to show you quickly again how to get your certificate. So remember, when you see this box, you're going to click this orange rectangle with the white arrow to expand this box. If you don't see this box, it says audio, attendees, handouts, and questions. So you're going to hit that to expand this box. And then over here, remember that you're going to click that white arrow for handouts. And when you click that arrow, it's going to open up and you're going to see all three of your attachments as well as your organization certificate for April for this training. So don't forget to download that. Once you click the blue link, click the name of the attachment, it should open up another window in your web browser. Okay, so let's go back to questions and answers. And I know Ms. Tiffany has been looking at the chat box, the question box for us, and I'll see if there's any hands raised. So while I'm looking for hands, Tiffany, if you have any questions, just let us know.
Okay, Stephanie, Ida, so far there's no questions.
Okay. So I have a few hand raises, so let me go see if anybody who rose their hand meant to raise their hand. So I have a hand raised from Juliana, I'm not really sure, Wooten? terrible pronouncing names, so please excuse me. I see that you have your hand raised, so I'm going to unmute you right now. Okay, Juliana? Hello? Okay, she unmuted herself. I guess she didn't mean to. If you don't have want a question answered, just remember to click that hand raised button back down to where it's green. Let's see if we have. I have a Rosa Perez. So Rosa, I'm going to unmute you now if you'd like to speak. Rosa, you are unmuted. Rosa? Okay, so it seemed like Rosa had a question, so we will unmute Rosa. And let's see if there's any more. Okay, we have a Rita who has her hand raised. So Rita, I'm going to unmute you and you can speak to the group. Rita, you're unmuted. Do you have a question or a comment about the presentation today? No? Okay. So well, let's go back to the chat box and Miss Ida, are there any, Miss Ida, Miss Tiffany, are there any other questions that we missed?
Nope, I'm looking through now and I don't see any questions that were missed.
Okay, great.
No one has anything further that they wanted to say. One thing that someone did ask was if you could repeat the resources that you mentioned. So I'm thinking
Yes.
maybe it was the Head Start.
We have a
We have
slide.
them at the end.
So at the end, we'll have a slide where you can have your cell phone out and take a quick picture of all the resources that we use for this presentation. So we definitely have that for you. Okay, so doesn't seem like the raise hand feature is working. It seems like a lot of people just accidentally left their hands up. So we're going to keep moving on from questions and answers. And again, once you click handouts, it opens up here. You click on certificate, April 2020, your PDF. It's going to open up and it will be your certificate. It will look just like this. Don't forget to put your name here. So you'll get your 1.5 of instructional hours. So hopefully your certificate looks like this. If you have any trouble at the end of the presentation, we also have our contact information, where you could also snap a picture with your cell phone to contact us as well. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Ms. Ida.
Thanks, Steph. So we're almost at the end. Woohoo, choo-choo. All righty. So this is going to be the next presentation will be next Thursday, and it will be with Deborah and Gretel, and they're going to be talking about Let's Talk, instructional support in pre-K. So we're looking forward for all of you to be attending the last of the series, and the information is there. And as you see the little arrow going on, so you probably will get a reminder if you register, but also let us know. We're going to give you our contact information for that next training as well. So.
Ida, Stephanie, I just wanted to read a couple of the comments that were coming in. Thank you for a great class. Thank you for what you're doing for us as teachers and for children. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's wonderful. So just so you can have a couple of those comments.
Yay, thank you. Yay.
I'm glad that what we presented resonated with you all, and hopefully you're going to be able to take some of these ideas and bring them back to your classroom and implement them. It's our pleasure. We had a really great time creating this presentation for you as well.
Yes, and like I said before, Stephanie and I have been in the trenches, so we do understand where you're coming from. So we were also letting you know some of the things that we have used in our classrooms that have been very successful. So once again, thank you so much for participating. And like I said before, everything will take a process and it will take time. But remember, we instruct, we encourage, we praise, we influence, we share, we guide, and we inspire our young little children because we are teachers. So remember that. This is our contact information. I'm on the top. I'm Ida, and that is my email address. So you can, sometimes you have an aha moment or a question afterwards, you can email us your question and we'll get to you. And then on the bottom, you'll see Stephanie's email, which is her first initial, her last name at elcbroward.org. So just remember it's .org, not .com. And then last but not least, these are the references that we use. This is the Teach Stone, the class dimension, the conscious discipline that I talked about a lot. This is where Stephanie got her video, the Head Start Early Learning, Childhood Learning and Knowledge Center, and the National Center for Quality Teaching and Learning, and NACI. So all great references that we use to make this presentation for you all.
So if you want, snap a picture of it right now so you can go back to those resources and work on your own professional development. That Head Start resource is great for new teachers just starting out, and it's great for seasoned teachers also who want to try something new. So it really is a great range of resources and downloadable resources too, and a lot of video modules too, if you like to learn through video.
Yes, definitely. So thank you for watching and listening to our presentation. Stephanie and I are so happy you enjoyed it. Stephanie, do you have any last little comments?
I just want to say
advice?
thank you for everyone for taking their time to be with us today and listen and be with our presentation, and stay safe and stay well in this unprecedented time. We'll all get
Yes.
together because we are all professionals. We are all preschool professionals. And if you want to see one silver lining, I think the situation really illustrated to a lot of people that teachers and preschool teachers are essential workers. So I want to thank you for all that you do, whether you're in the classroom now or you'll be going back into your classroom when it is time and ready.
Yes. Thank you so much for all that you do. We are amazing. Yay, teachers. We rock.
All right. So without further ado, we are going to end this session and this webinar. Please contact us if you have any trouble with the handouts, with the certification, and anything like that. You have our contact information. So have a great afternoon and tune back next Thursday for session 3 of our pre-K class overview sessions. Goodbye.
Bye.